Good morning, folks, and welcome to a special edition episode of the Sticks and the Six podcast here on 234. I'm your host, as always, Andrew Forbes, here with my co-host, Peter Baracchini. And Peter, we got a special episode today. We're going to be talking a little history today with the Toronto Maple Leafs. But before we get into all of that, how you doing this week?
Yeah, it's great when we get to talk about the history, especially with one of the big moments that have happened in recent memory for the Leafs with the anniversary. And yeah, we're really excited to get this episode going. I'm doing good, man. Like you, I got the hat this morning. I got some massive bedhead, and I didn't want to come on camera with it all over the place. I'm due for a haircut right now, so all the flow is covered by this right now. Early in the morning wake ups, but yeah, I'm doing good, man.
Yeah, certainly not used to these early morning episodes anymore. We used to do them back in the early seasons of the show, but like I said, we have a special guest today, director Steve Paikin of a brand new documentary coming out, Frozen in Time, the Bill Barilko Story. Steve, welcome to the show. We're very excited to have you on, talk a little history of the Maple Leafs, and love the jersey.
Andrew, Peter, thanks for having me on. And yes, this is, of course, the kind of jersey they would have worn back in the day, this fabulous old logo of the Maple Leafs from back in the, gosh, I don't know, I guess they wore it in the 30s, 40s, etc.
Very nice, very nice. Yeah, and of course we don't. We always talk more current events here with the Maple Leafs, but of course, with the new documentary hitting screens, the Frozen in Time Bill Barilko story. We got to ask you right off the hop, what made you want to do this documentary?
Well, actually, can I just go right out of form here and ask you guys a question off the top, because that's normally what I do. And my question is, did you know the Bill Barilko story? Are you aware of it? I know none of us was alive when it happened, but I wonder if you guys are aware of it.
Mm-hmm. Very aware of it. Yeah.
I'll tell you.
I was about to say my first introduction to it. Yes, it was the narrative behind the story of Bill Barilko, but obviously with the most Canadians, it was because of the Tragically Hip and the way that I was introduced with that. But yes, very much in tune with the story.
So my story came up a little bit differently. My dad was a Labatt Blue drinker, so they used to have the pucks inside the case of the Labatt Blue. They had former Leafs numbers on each of the pucks with a little blurb about their story. So when I got a Bill Barilko story puck, and I started looking up into the story of like who was this player, what was he all about, and of course started to dive in a little bit more into the history of the plane crash, the history of like what had happened the season prior, and then going from there, it just kind of intrigued me even more. And of course, like as you mentioned, we weren't alive at that time, but it was certainly something that sparks the interest of not just the common fan, but people that kind of are. It's a story that you don't see very often, right? So unfortunately, a tragic one, but one that certainly has a place in the history of the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Well, I guess I shouldn't be surprised that both of you guys know the history of the Bill Barilko story, but I think that makes you guys quite distinctive for most Canadians who I'm sure do not know the story. Mm-hmm. I knew the story since I was a little kid because my parents used to take me to games at Maple Leaf Gardens. This is going back to the 1960s, was my first game. And of course, Bill's retired number 5 jersey, a banner for it would have been up in the rafters of Maple Leaf Gardens. And there were, unlike today, when there's lots of banners up there acknowledging lots of different players, there were only 2 back there. Back in the day, it was Bill for number 5 and Ace Bailey for number 6. And I'm sure somewhere along the way, I had a conversation with my folks saying, what's the story there? And I've known the story for a long time, but most people don't. And I've been, I don't want to say obsessed with the story, but I've certainly been anxious to kind of, because it's so extraordinary, to have the story go out to a broader audience. And I was literally, oops, that's my alarm that just went off to remind me to be available for you guys. So there we go. I was doing an interview with an author named Ronnie Schuker, who had a book about all the crazy places in the world that he's played hockey, every province and territory, top of some mountains, anyway, some extraordinary things. And one of the stories he has in the book is the Barilko story. Story of a guy, 24 years old, scores the greatest goal in the history of the Toronto Maple Leafs, which was 75 years ago last Tuesday. He scores in overtime. The Leafs win the cup against the Habs in the deciding game. A few months later, he goes on a fishing trip. He's flying over Northern Ontario. His plane goes down without a trace. Biggest manhunt in Canadian history. They can't find him. For the next 11 years, the Leafs win 0 Stanley Cups. In 62, they win the cup. They find the bodies. So it's an extraordinary Canadian story, iconic, and I don't think enough people know about it. So as I'm interviewing Ronnie on my old TVO show, The Agenda, I say to him, it occurs to me as we're talking, I say, Ronnie, I got a great idea. Don't run off after this interview's over. I got a great idea. You and I have to talk. And afterwards I said, Ronnie, next year is going to be the 75th anniversary of the greatest goal in Leafs history. We got to do a documentary on it. And that's how it all started.
You just brought up the fact that it's the 75th anniversary and it's the perfect timing for this to come out. That was like the follow-up leading into going on this journey to try and uncover the mystery of Bill Barilko. I was just curious to know, how was this experience for the both of you, and what did you uncover during this investigative piece and documentary?
Well, I think one of the things that the 75th anniversary allows you to do, for whatever reason in society, we are kind of attracted to round numbers. And 3/4 of a century just felt like a nice round number upon which to, I mean, it was a good hook for us. It was a good hook to tell the story, figuring that there would be a lot of attention, as there has been, for the 75th anniversary of the goal. I'm a little hesitant, Peter, I don't mind saying, in revealing too much information about what we've learned, because I want people to see the documentary and find out some of the new things that we've learned. For example, nobody, I mean, they did a big investigation back in the day, but nobody can say conclusively why the plane went down. And this is, you know, in Northern Ontario, north of Timmins. So it's a long way away. Excuse me. It's a long way away. And you know, we are going to advance some new theories as to why the plane went down. These theories have not been advanced before, but you'll forgive me if I say I'm not giving it up here. You got to see the show to find out.
Fair enough. Fair enough. No, I think that's the great like summarization that if you want to find out, you just need to watch it. So duly noted.
You had some pretty incredible guests on for this documentary as well, including Frank Mahovlich and Phil Pritchard. What was it like getting, you know, different perspective, different minds coming in and kind of joining in on this, really an invest with Bill Barilko?
Well, I have to say, I've known Frank Sinatra for a long time. Frank Sinatra, there I go again. Frank Mahovlich. I've known Frank Mahovlich for a very long time. Strangely enough, not so much from his time with the Maple Leafs, but as you guys may know, I've spent way too much time covering politics in this country. And Frank Mahovlich was a senator in Ottawa for a while. You have to retire when you're 75, so he hasn't been there in more than a decade. But I do remember him when he got appointed to the Senate. So we know each other a little bit. And when we asked if he would do an interview about it, because you got to remember, this happened in 1951. There's very few people around today who actually have firsthand memory of having seen Barilko play or met Barilko. Mm-hmm. And strangely enough, Mahovlich and Barilko are both from around the same area. I mean, Bill Barilko was born in Timmins. Frank is born in Schumacher, which is not far away. So Frank tells a wonderful story about when he first lays eyes on him, and that's in the documentary. Phil Pritchard, people will know by virtue of those white gloves. He's the keeper of the cup. He's the guy that makes sure that everybody who wins the Stanley Cup gets a chance to have it for a day during the summer. And the care and tending of the Stanley Cup is in his hands, and he's very good at that. And of course, being with the Hall of Fame, he knows the story as well as anybody, and it was great to get his perspective on it as well. But we do, it's funny, ever since we've gone on, our little team has gone on a bit of a publicity tour since the 75th anniversary last Tuesday, April 21st, 51 was the day it happened. And it's been so fascinating, guys. People are coming out of the woodwork saying, oh, I've got this Barilko souvenir, or, my dad was the last guy to talk to him before he got on the plane, or, these kinds of stories. There's so many connections to the Barilko story that still exist today. And we are, we had our list of people to interview before the publicity tour started. And now that it has started, we've got even more people coming out of the woodwork, somebody who's got the puck, somebody who's got the fuselage. Somebody's got the fuselage in his basement in Brampton, and we've talked to him. There's just a wonderful number of people who still care about this story and have a connection to it. And you'll find all that in our documentary, Frozen in Time, as well.
How great is it knowing that all these people are coming out with their own personal stories regarding Barilko, regarding the whole entire situation, regarding his death, and just basically the whole entire lead up to this documentary?
I love it because I think you can have a great debate, although to me it's not much of a debate, but I think you can have a great debate about who scored the greatest goal in Leaf history. I mean, this is a franchise that is more than a century old. While we haven't, it's true, had a Stanley Cup victory in a long time, it's also fair to say that the team, it's got the second most cups in NHL history, and it does have a long and glorious history. And you would think there would be lots of competition for greatest goal ever. I say there's not. I say it's indisputable that Barilko scored the greatest goal in Leaf history, because to me, if you score a goal in overtime in the deciding game of a Stanley Cup final that wins your team the cup, I mean, how does it get more impactful than that? And the added drama of his going on the fishing trip and then dying, that was the last goal he ever scored, as the Tragically Hip so beautifully told us in their song, 50 Mission Cap. And we're going to use the song in the documentary too. To me, there's no debate about who got the greatest goal ever. And the fact that there are still people in Canada today who have a direct connection to him and that goal, I love that. And that's, as I say, all going to be in the doc.
Now, Steve, without giving out too much, obviously, we want to draw as many eyes into the doc as we can as well. But it was so many years to find this wreckage.
Yes.
Aside from the fact that it was in this kind of remote area, what took so long?
Well, it's a great question. And the reason people who live in the southern part of Canada can't really get their heads around why it took so long is that we don't really have a good sense of how thick the trees and the forests and the brush is in Northern Ontario. Mm-hmm. The amazing thing is, despite the biggest manhunt in Canadian history, and they were flying over where they thought the plane went down over and over and over, but they couldn't see a thing because the trees just cover the ground so utterly, they couldn't see a thing. And even when they found the wreckage 11 years after the crash, it was a complete fluke. Somebody was flying overhead, and somehow the sun just managed to hit the metal wreckage of the plane at just the right angle to create a shine, to create a reflection. And as a result, that's how they found it. It wasn't as a result of an orchestrated attempt. It was just a fluke. So if you know Northern Ontario, you would know how impossible it is from the skies to find something on the ground, even if you have a sense about where the plane went down. And of course, they didn't. They didn't have any idea where the plane went down. So I'm not surprised it took so long.
You mentioned the fact that, because of how dense Northern Ontario is with all the trees and the shrubbery and everything like that is, you and Ronnie visited the site when it exploded.
No, we haven't gone yet. We're going to go in the next couple of months.
You're going to go in the next couple of months. Okay, perfect. Knowing that you're going to be visiting that site, what kind of sense are you going in with it in terms of, your emotions, what to expect? Is there something that's like, not necessarily something unnerving because it's a scene of, a prominent site with a prominent player? What is your expectation heading in before going into the site?
Peter, it's a wonderful question, and I'm doing my best not to have any expectations at all. I really keep telling myself, just have an open mind, let the experience come to you. Don't try to set something up, or don't try to assume that you know how you're going to react. I really just want to react in the moment. That's the reason we're going there. And, besides the fact that the guy who scored the greatest goal in Leaf history came to his demise there, I think in some respects this is hallowed ground in terms of Canadian history. I mean, think of this poor guy. Bill Barilko had won 4 Stanley Cups in 5 years. The Leafs were a dynasty back then in the late 40s, early 50s. And here's this 24-year-old kid who was called Bashin' Bill Barilko. That was his nickname. He wasn't a goal scorer. He was known for hitting people. And he scores this goal, the most unlikely guy on the roster to get this goal. Greatest goal he'll ever score. turns out to be his last goal. He's 24 years old. He never married. He never had kids. He never got a chance to presumably win future Stanley Cups, which he may very well have done. I mean, he was a good enough hockey player that when the Leafs won cups in 62, 63, 64, he might still have been on the roster and been able to have enjoyed those championships as well. I think I'm going to be very moved and sad about unfulfilled potential for this poor young man. But again, I'm trying not to have any expectations because I just want to experience what it will be like to be at one of the sites of the most iconic stories in the history of our country.
I'm glad you brought that up. I was gonna mention that it's not just about, Toronto Maple Leaf history. It's not just about hockey history. It truly is about Canadian history. And when you get into the arguably one of the greatest Canadian bands as well, about said incident, you really get a feel for how deeply this goes on a national, a national basis. I do have to ask,
and Andrew, if I could just throw a word in there
absolutely.
about the Tragically Hip. I think we owe them a great debt of thanks for having 50 Mission Cap come out in the 1990s. And admittedly, this is why we need to tell the story over and over again, because for a whole group of people who obviously grew up in the 40s, 50s, and 60s, they know the Barilko story. But after that, not so much. But then you get to the 90s, and the Tragically Hip make the story well known again. And there's another generation of people then who therefore learn the story. But that's more than 3 decades ago. So I know you guys are the exceptions because this is very much your life, but I think there's a whole bunch of folks in your generation who have no idea about this story. And so we need to tell it again. And the 75th anniversary gives us a wonderful opportunity to do that.
Absolutely. Yeah, no question. I do have to ask, it interests me that you guys are going to see the site because, one, it's such a remote area, but two, my understanding is that there is still some of the wreckage that has been left there. Is that correct?
Yeah, I believe that's true. And I believe there is a puck that has been kind of nailed into a tree with a little sign underneath it indicating that this is where it all happened. But it's not a place you're ever going to accidentally bump into. This is a hard place to get to. You've got to fly to Timmins. When you're in Timmins, you've got to get a helicopter then close to the site because you can't actually get to the site. It's in the middle of a dense forest. So we will get to within a few kilometers of the site, but then we've got to walk through the forest the rest of the way. And my friend Ronnie Schuker, the author of the book I was telling you about, and my colleague on this documentary, he's been there before, and he says you absolutely have to time the visit. Like, you can't go too early because you'll be up to your neck in snow, but you can't leave it too late because then you'll be overrun by mosquitoes. So we are literally checking the weather conditions almost on let's say a weekly basis, because they just got a big dump of snow a week ago, so we can't get there now. And of course, we don't want to leave it till the summer when all the snow is gone, because then we'll be overrun by mosquitoes. And Ronnie says he's done that before, and believe me, he says you don't want to be there then. So we're trying to find the sweet spot between the two. I'm expecting it'll be sort of end of May, beginning of June, and then we'll get up there and we'll experience it for ourselves again.
Wow. Yeah. So then my follow-up question to that is, you mentioned off the top of the show how, this has a certain place in your heart. Obviously, you have going to games to Maple Leaf Gardens and asking the question and kind of, how it's kind of been that obsession that you've had for a little while. Doing this documentary, getting the opportunity to possibly or eventually go to the site of the wreckage, does that fulfill that kind of obsession within you as the director of this documentary?
What an interesting question. Yeah, very much so. I think actually you need to separate it into two parts. Will it fulfill a mission that I have felt for the longest time to tell this story? Yes, it will. On the other hand, the mission will only have been half completed. The other half of the mission is to make sure people see the documentary. And I'm glad to say TVO, where I have worked for 33 years, has agreed to play the documentary. Look, the story took place in Ontario. What better broadcaster to put it on the air than TVO, which has been around since 1970. So I'm really glad they're going to play it. But it's also going to be in movie theaters as well. And then I'm sure it will have screenings at film festivals and so on. So once we finish the film, and as you can tell, we're probably a year away still from finishing it. It's one thing to get there and make the documentary. It's another thing to make sure people see it, because that's the whole point. I want people to know this story. It's a great hockey story, but as you just pointed out, it's also a great Canadian history story. It's not just for hockey fans. It's our Buddy Holly story in a way. I got the feeling that if we lived in the United States, people would be all over this and they'd know the story, right? Mm-hmm. They're just like the Tragically Hip brought Barilko to life. American Pie brought the Buddy Holly story to life. The day the music died, when Buddy Holly, the great singer, died in a plane crash. They seem to, I guess that's America. They mythologize their icons in a way that we don't. So it's about time, and we're going to do it.
I was about to say kind of like a follow-up to the follow-up of Andrew's question and your response too, but also this one too, in terms of like idolizing those who have fallen, kind of like what you just mentioned with Buddy Holly. Do you feel like this is the perfect moment for that? And also, where does the story because you've had a long-standing career in television, politics, interviews, and everything like that. Where does this where does the story or this film stand amongst your career as well?
Wow, that's a good one. I have a feeling, listen, I've been very lucky in my so-called career. I've had a chance to host television shows. I've done radio. I've worked for newspapers. I've written 13 books. I've made documentaries in the past. But once this one is done, boy, I mean, if this is not at the top of the list of all of the things I've had a chance to do, it's awful close to the top of the list, because this is... I feel a great responsibility to Bill's memory to get this right. Mm-hmm. And, while Bill never married and he doesn't have any children, he did have a sister, and the sister has a son named Frank. Frank Klisenich is his name, and he lives in Minnesota. And I want to do right by Bill Barilko's nephew, Frank. I want to be sure that he thinks that we've done a good job immortalizing his uncle. And so there's a lot of pressure to make sure we get this right. And I think we will. I mean, we have a perfect team in place. I'm directing it. Ronnie is producing it and co-writing it. We have Barry Averich, who is one of the great documentary filmmakers of all time in this country. He's made probably 70 documentaries over the years. His production company is in charge of this. So we've got about as good a team, I think, in place to make this work as we could possibly get. So I don't think we're going to screw it up, and I think Frank's going to be very happy with what we do at the end of the day. But you can better believe that we are feeling the pressure to make sure that we get this right.
And you just mentioned Bill's nephew, Frank. How instrumental was he in all of this in terms of providing background of information that he's known about his uncle that, let's say, the public may not know about? How great was it to talk to him, and what did he offer in terms of, some stories that are enlightening for you?
Well, funnily enough, I met Frank 5 years ago on the occasion of the 70th anniversary of the Barilko goal. And I was hosting the agenda on TVO at the time. And it's funny. It's funny how these things come together. The executive producer of the show came up to me one day and she said, "You know what? The show that we were planning to do in a few days just fell apart. Have you got anything you can pull together really quickly?" And I said, "Well, I know we don't normally do sports, but this isn't really a sports story. It's a Canadian history story. The 70th anniversary of the greatest goal in Leafs history is happening on the same day. How about I pull together a show on that?" And she said, "Perfect." So that's when I got a hold of Frank and got him involved for the 70th anniversary 5 years ago. And we did an interview on that occasion, and he told some of the stories. But again, doing a one-off hour-long show, no, it wasn't an hour, would have been a half an hour, doing a half an hour segment on TVO, which airs once, and that's it, on the 70th anniversary. And I think we had maybe 3 other guests on the show with him at that time. That's not going to be the same as interviewing dozens of people, going to the site, doing a 90-minute feature-length documentary, which will appear in movie theaters as well. This is all just bigger. And yes, Frank's got the stories, he's got the scrapbooks, he's got the memorabilia. He's indispensable, of course, to making this documentary.
Go ahead, Peter.
Yeah. Oh, I was just going to add one final note. What's one thing that you want people to take from this documentary? I know you mentioned about, every single like moment throughout history ever since this happened, there's been something worthwhile to know about. The news breaking about his death, the Maple Leafs winning the cup years later, the tragically hit with 50 mission cap, and now for the future generation, which you mentioned. Is this the continuous cycle that you want people to see for this documentary?
Yeah, I note that there have been a couple of books written about Barilko. There's a short TSN piece done, 6-7 minutes long. There have been obviously newspaper stories back in the day that were done on his goal and then his disappearance. But we've never had a feature-length documentary made about this story. And so it's long overdue, and we're going to do it. And I think I want people to know the name Bill Barilko. I'm sure people of younger generations, when you ask them who scored the greatest goal in Leaf history, they'll say, well, I remember Dougie Gilmour against Curtis Joseph, or, Rick Vaive when he got the first guy to score 50 goals for the Leafs, or, if you go back a little further, maybe George Armstrong with that iconic empty net goal to win the Leafs the cup in 1967, or maybe Nick Borshevsky, there's a list of really memorable goals. But when you score the goal in overtime that wins the Leafs the cup, I don't think it gets better than that. So I want people to know this 24-year-old Ukrainian-Canadian kid who grew up in Northern Ontario deserves a place in our memory and in our Leaf lore. He belongs there. He's on the top shelf. He's got the greatest goal in the history of the team. And his sad demise, I think it's important that we remember it all.
Well, Steve, obviously you've got more going on with the trip up north, and is there any way people can follow along as you continue to create and finish up this documentary, leading into the obvious release of it, and hopefully a very strong audience once it's all said and done?
Sure. Yeah, I'm going to be keeping people posted on regular occasions, and we'll have another update, I think, in June, because the plane was actually found. The wreckage was found in June of '62. So, there will be these historic anniversaries that come along over the next several months. And on my social media channels, I'm at S. Paikin on X. I'm on Blue Sky, LinkedIn, what else? Threads, Facebook. Just keep an eye on my social media channels, and I will be constantly updating people as to the status of this project, leading up to eventually the premiere, which I think we'll probably have in Timmins. I should say Agnico Eagle, which is one of the maybe the biggest mining company in the world, which is headquartered in Timmins. They've been very good to us about supporting this documentary, and I suspect we will have the world premiere in Timmins to acknowledge their contribution to this film. But then, of course, it'll get played all over the place after that, and I hope you guys will have me on again when the film is ready and we can show a snippet of it and have another conversation about it.
Absolutely.
I'm glad you mentioned it. I was just going to say, as soon as it's ready, you keep us updated. We'll continue to push it, and we hope to have you back on as soon as it's all ready.
Brilliant. You call me up, I'll be there.
Thank you very much. Absolutely. Thank you very much, Steve, for coming on today. We appreciate it.
Thanks for your time.
I appreciate you guys. Thanks so much for the interest.
All the best. Well, Peter, truly amazing story. And like Steve said, it's more than just hockey history. It's more than just Leafs history. This is something that it really was a story in Canada, right? It's and as you mentioned with the the '93 song by the Tragically Hit, bringing it back into the kind of the focal point for not only hockey. Again, hopefully this documentary will do the same thing. I know I'm looking forward to it, and I really find it intriguing that the visit to the wreckage. I think that's something that that part interests me in a big way. It's something that when I first heard that there was some of the wreckage that was still there, that's something that I wanted to do, and I just I applaud them for getting the story back in the forefront of the minds of like I said, Canadians, hockey fans, Leaf fans, and it's a good argument to have with the greatest goal of all time. I like that.
Mhm.
I like that this, there should be an argument as to this being one of the greatest goals, if not the greatest goal in Maple Leafs history.
Absolutely, yeah. And Steve made that good point. This should be at the top in terms of greatest goals and even like top moments in Toronto sports history. I know it's been years and years away, but that was an iconic moment considering the aftermath and what followed and transpired after that. That makes this goal a little bit more impactful in terms of hockey lore and just sports lore in Toronto in general. And I'm kind of glad that you mentioned too about the whole fact about them visiting the wreckage. And he said that it's still an ongoing process where they're going to go and see it. And honestly, I can't imagine being in that situation because you're, again, like I mentioned and asked him what he's expecting going in, because in any moment of a significant area of a tragedy or anything like that, you're overcome with like a somber tone. You know, not necessarily an eerie feeling, but it's very quiet. And for him to get that opportunity to go up there and see a history and see what happened and the actual, uh, you know, investigation, trying to figure out what happened itself. I think this is great. I think this is what many people, many fans have been wanting to know and understand for years, how this happened. And given how we've advanced technologically in terms of finding things that have been uncovered or haven't been known back then, I think it's a great opportunity. I think we may get a lot of answers more so now than we ever did before.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. And yeah, like I said, um, it's gonna be great to follow along. He did mention at the end there where we can follow along in terms of the journey to finishing the doc, and potentially when the premiere date is in Timmins, which I thought's great as well. So very excited to see the final product from Steve and team. So I should mention that this episode is of course brought to you by our our sponsors. Sorry, over at the DraftKings Sportsbook. No sport flips faster than hockey. One power play, a goalie pulled with 2 minutes left, and everything changes. DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NHL, is built for that kind of chaos with live betting from puck drop to the final buzzer. And DraftKings has your back with early exit protection. If you place a pregame player prop bet and your player starts the game but leaves in the first period due to an injury and doesn't return, you'll get your bet back in cash. No bonus bets, no opt-in, just real protection when injuries happen early. New sportsbook customers bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code THPN so you're ready for the moment. That's code THPN. Turn $5 into $300 in bonus bets if your bet wins. In partnership with DraftKings, the crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or 1-800-MY-RESET. New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. Connecticut, call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino in Kansas, wager tax pass-through may apply in Illinois. 21 and over in most states. Void in Ontario. Restrictions apply. Bet must win to receive bonus bets which expire in 7 days. Minimum odds required. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see sportsbook.draftkings.com/promos. Limited time offer.
So before we close it out here, just a quick update on the obviously Stanley Cup playoffs going on as well. So it's not just a special episode about the Bill Barilko story. We're going to talk a little NHL playoffs. The Ottawa Senators. Not a pretty playoff. Not a pretty playoff for them.
If you want to say not being pretty is the nice way of saying it, yeah. I mean, it was. Not going to say embarrassing because no series really is, but it was kind of a letdown given how quick this series ended. And to me, with everything that happened, how we thought it would be a little bit more competitive, given how Ottawa went on a big run and everything like that, I really thought that it would be a little bit more interesting as opposed to a 4-game sweep at the hands of the Carolina Hurricanes. I did say Carolina in 6, so they did finish it 2 games early. But I don't know. It just kind of felt like Ottawa was not necessarily chasing all the time. I think they tried to impose their will, and that backfired quickly. You saw with Brady Tkachuk trying to drop the gloves with Jordan Staal at the very beginning. What impact did that have that game? Not really a whole lot. Ottawa was chasing. They never had the lead. Stützle and Tkachuk combined for 1 point alone. And I don't know. Even on Twitter right now, the jokes are just making itself right now. The Carolina Hurricanes social media team is just absolutely on one right now in terms of some of the things that Sens fans have said and all that. It really is kind of funny. But yeah, a little bit of a letdown because I thought Ottawa would have put up more of a fight, but I think we could put to rest that I know that Linus Ullmark has had some tough postseasons, including last year as well. I think that he was the only reason why they had a fighting chance in all 4 games and why it was closer than it actually was.
I'm glad you mentioned that. So Allmark's numbers were incredible and deserves all the praise that he should get for what he did for this team. Like he was the reason that this team even had a shot at winning any of these games. I'm going to do something I never did for the Leafs, and I'm shocked by this. I'm personally shocked myself. This isn't just on Tkachuk and Stützle, okay?
That is true, yeah.
Their 2 stars combined for 1 point over a 4-game series, but they had nothing. Their entire team had absolutely nothing going for them.
Overall, yeah.
They made physical play and that physical dominance their priority over the offense that they had that got them to the playoffs in the first place.
Exactly what I said about the physical aspect taking over and straying away from made them successful down that stretch.
Exactly. So you had players even like the Jake Sandersons and the Shabots, and I know there were some injuries that played into it as well, but you had players that should have had more of an impact. Even Drake Batherson. Like Drake Batherson had a couple goals, but I mean, that's one of your guys. Where was Shane Pinto?
Yep.
I
thought he would have been an X factor for them.
Exactly. So to be honest, we both knew Carolina was going to get this done. I didn't think it was going to be a sweep. I thought they'd be a little bit tougher out. But I also did say after that ridiculous song came out prior to the playoffs, I did say that Ottawa lost the first round. I don't know if you remember that tweet, but as soon as I saw that song,
that
Ottawa
video
just lost the first round.
I was about to say that video alone is a running joke right now, and I think it's being plastered all over again.
And honestly, shout out to Mark Mathot, who prior to the playoffs said now the Sens are finally better than the Leafs. No,
not really, because the Maple Leafs have not been swept during this era. Yeah, they missed the playoffs, but
I was going to say all of their playoff series, even though they were first round exits, still were not sweeps.
Yeah.
So, I'm not prepared to give them the as Biz would say. Biz would say, they're not the Kings of Ontario yet.
No, not even by a long shot.
But in saying that, with everything that Allmark went through this year, I hope that team praises the hell out of this guy. He stood on his head to try and make the Senators win that series, and truly, truly incredible. But anyways, jumping to another series real quick. The Pittsburgh Penguins finally pick up a win last night. Yes. They were on the verge of getting swept as well. Sidney Crosby gets into it with Team Canada teammate Travis Sanheim at the end there. Your thoughts on that series real quick?
I was getting a little scared there because I thought the youth would prevail over the aging core of the Pittsburgh Penguins. And I kind of look back because I said Pittsburgh in 7, right? So, yeah, the Penguins live to fight another day. And that, to me, is absolutely insane because of how well Philadelphia has played and how well you're getting a lot of impact from their younger players like Porter Martone. He's just been an absolute stud. You're seeing contributions up and down the lineup, both up front and on the back end. And Dan Vladar, too. I think Dan Vladar has looked fantastic for Philadelphia. And it's tough for teams to come down 3-0, but when you have Sidney Crosby and Evgeny Malkin leading your team and have been in spots or tough spots like this throughout their whole entire career, I say probably buckle up because I don't think this series is over whatsoever. Because I believe they're going back to Pittsburgh. And you can rest assured that I don't think Sid wants this to be the end, especially for this run right now. I think he still is kind of hungry, but you got to tip your hat to the Flyers. And honestly, I'm just going to say this. The picture that they posted yesterday of the puck everything or Puckum shirt, I thought that was kind of funny because kind of like the Buffalo Sabres, not a whole lot of people kind of had them in their pool. Maybe as sort of like an upset, and I could get that because of how well they play down the stretch. But man, like I said, nothing beats the Battle of Pennsylvania. It's up there with some of the other top rivalries. And I don't know, going back to Pittsburgh, I think Pittsburgh does have a chance to try and flip the script, but we'll see what happens. And they're going to have to rely on Crosby a lot at this point.
Yeah, I mean, if anybody in Philadelphia's got an extra one of those shirts, I'd love it if you could send it to me. That'd be a sick shirt. I agree. I think
Puck
people
everybody.
underestimate the Philadelphia
Puck
Flyers.
Everybody. That's what the shirt said.
Puck
yes.
everybody. Yes.
Yes.
I think people underestimated the Flyers going into this series. People saw the names on Pittsburgh and the Crosbys and the Letangs and the Malkin, and everyone kind of jumped ship on the Flyers. But the Flyers have put up a hell of a fight, up 3-1. Obviously, it's coming down to one game, right? So that one will be interesting to watch. Closing out the East, Montreal up 2-1 on Tampa Bay, Buffalo up 2-1 on Boston. Your thoughts? I think I took both Montreal and Buffalo in those two series.
I took Montreal and Boston, but I want to focus more on Montreal and Tampa Bay. Can we say that this is the most exciting series in the whole entire playoffs? Even better than Dallas and Minnesota at this point, because I thought that was going to be those two to watch. But man, Montreal hates Tampa's guts, and Tampa just hates everybody and wants to demolish everybody that stands in their way, and Montreal's not going down with a fight. The Slav hat trick in the first game,
2 OTs back to back.
I was about to say 3 OTs back to back. Josh Anderson stepping up as kind of like a key player for them, and Lane Hudson getting that game-winning goal to give him a 2-1 lead. Honestly, I'm excited to see what Game 4, I believe, is going down tonight when we're recording. Man, I think that I know Gary Bettman likes this format because it creates new rivalries. I don't want to give him the benefit of the doubt just yet, but I think this one has created a massive fire and hatred between the two. And Montreal's not backing down. They're fighting. They're fighting. Pound for pound. They're going up against a heavyweight, and they're not phased one bit.
Your little sub stories too for the series. Hagel was in the Canadiens prior to the beginning of his NHL career and didn't make the cut.
Yeah.
So a little sub story for you. On top of that, no Caulfield yet, no Suzuki yet. I don't think they've shown up yet.
Wait until they show up.
This is an incredible series. I think right now Martin St. Louis has outcoached John Cooper, which is crazy to say in knowing that John Cooper is rarely outcoached. And man, a lot of praise to the Montreal Canadiens because they turned it around. They turned it around the right way. Now, look what you've got in Slavkovsky. Look, I mean, even Arbor Jackey's come in and played a role in that team, and
he's giving everybody death stares on the other side, man. He wants to rip someone's head off.
It's going to be a fun few games to watch here for sure. Buffalo, I got to say, Montreal, electric in the Bell Center. Electric.
Buffalo electric.
Insanity on the streets, man. Insanity on the streets.
You see the roller hockey guys taking down that dummy of a.
They went to Boston.
Jersey? Oh,
they went to Boston. This is the crazy part of the playoffs, and I love that Buffalo's back in it. I think it's fantastic. It's really rounding out the East incredibly well. So that's been a lot of fun to watch as well. And of course, we always love to see the Bruins go down in a hard way. So that's been a bonus as well. Over to the West real quick. We are sweep with the Colorado Avalanche and the LA Kings. We both kind of saw that coming. I think I could be wrong, but I think you actually had the sweep Yeah,
did have
you
the
have
sweep.
Colorado
Yeah.
on the sweep. I gave the Kings, a chance, and
Benefit of the doubt there.
yeah, they're really showing me up here. So that one's on the verge of ending. And again, the Stars have not been the Stars in that series as of yet. McKinnon's had, I believe, a goal and 2 assists, or maybe 2 goals, 1 assist. So it
It's
hasn't
been
really
kind of
come
like
to
a
fruition yet.
low-scoring affair too.
It has been very tight, and that's Kings hockey, right? That's
It
the
is.
Kings hockey. The Dallas Minnesota series tied 2-2. I believe we both had it going the distance here. Yeah, we both had it going 7. You have Dallas, I have Minnesota.
Yeah.
For my pool's sake, I hope Minnesota pulls it off. I got Matt Boldy just running amok right now, but
Got that game-winning goal yesterday.
yeah, he's looking good, man. That kid's an absolute stud.
Yeah.
That kid's an absolute stud. But again, a great series, high scoring. Don't want to be a goaltender in that series. If you're Philip Gustafson, I guess he was asked about what it was like watching the players on the ice, and he said, "I don't know. Why don't you go ask the players that are playing?" So there's a high potential that there's going to be a goalie available this summer, especially with Jesper Wallstad playing the way that he's playing. Anaheim 2-1 over Edmonton.
This is what we feared.
I think we talked about it. We both took Edmonton, but we talked about the potential of this young squad coming and Dostal playing the way that he's playing. Isn't it interesting though? The trade between the Penguins and the Edmonton Oilers. Neither goalie is now playing in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Tristan Jarry.
Yes, to rely on Connor Ingram.
No Skinner. Yeah.
Yeah, this is like I said before, this is what we feared about that series. Goaltending and even the defensive play too. Like that was an absolute, like I saw some of the highlights of some of those goals in game 3. That was an absolute nightmare to watch from an Edmonton Oilers standpoint. Let's just hope that McDavid goes God mode and he puts up the points that he did in game 3, carries over to 4, 5, 6, 7 possibly, because when you see McDavid with that stare at the end of a game looking at the opposing team, you're going to get a plus performance from him next time around.
Yeah, I was going to say, you got to assume that that McDavid's going to put it on his shoulders again and try and carry this team through the first round, and maybe they start to get it done. Regardless, we mentioned it off the top before we talked playoffs last episode. The goaltending, the back end for Edmonton, absolutely abysmal. It's going to be their downfall. I don't think they make the Stanley Cup final. Lastly, Utah over Vegas 2-1. And if we're talking about electric atmospheres,
Utah.
Let's talk about the jersey trade-in outside of Utah's arena. More than 1,000 people showed up to trade in their Vegas Golden Knights jerseys for a Utah Mammoth jersey. They did interviews on the street. This might be the biggest troll job, and I tagged Ryan Smith in it too, because I was like, this might be the biggest troll job I've ever seen pre-playoffs in any sport. Hey, if you got one of our opponent's jerseys and you want a new jersey, come trade it in. And more than 1,000 people show up. Truly unbelievable.
Was it only blank jerseys, or could you have gotten a name? Because if there was a name involved too, I so would have done that if I had.
I'm sure like you could get the name after, but I'm guessing you probably have to pay for the name. But regardless, if you're getting a brand new jersey in those colors, the Mammoth colors, God, I might have been on ship. I might have been on the ship.
I 100% would have done that. And given how how Vegas, Florida, some of those teams are the most hated teams in the NHL from other fan bases.
Yeah,
kind of makes sense, right? I'm kind of glad that they actually went down that road.
Gary says it's never good to be wrong about your picks, but having McJesus being pushed out the door towards the Leafs is awesome.
Yeah. Possibly.
We're not saying anything. We're not jumping on that yet. He's got another year left with Edmonton. We're not jumping on that yet.
Let's see what happens first with the playoffs, because even Austin Matthews is going the same road as McDavid right now. Playing it safe, but let's see.
Gary says he heard it was 700 exchanged. I believe I'll find.
Kind of sounds right.
I'll post it up, but I heard it was over 1,000 that ended up changing it or trading in their jerseys. Here's your stat of the day. Mitch Marner, 2 assists through 3 games plus 1. Averaging roughly 24 shifts a game at about, let's call it 21 minutes even. Only has 4 shots in those 3 games.
Kind
The Vegas Golden Knights
goes quiet every single time, right?
The Vegas Golden Knights down 2-1. That's all I have to say.
Yeah.
That's all I have to say.
Carter
Hart got pulled.
I picked Utah. I think you picked Utah too. Yeah. I think this young squad could get it done, and I think this may be the downfall of the Vegas Golden Knights right now. So,
yeah,
a lot of hockey left to be played, but I'm just going to say it's a good thing.
7 more years. 7 more years.
I mean, if you want your $11 million man to only just put up 2 points in 3 games, it's all right. Cool.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Anyways, before we do close it out, two last notes. One, it's being reported that Jason Spezza did turn down some kind of hockey ops job with the Leafs. There was kind of that friction upon his exit when Kyle Dubas was fired, and he followed suit. So I didn't see him coming back. They do have their short list of possible GM. Still believe that hockey ops, kind of president of hockey ops. There has been discussion, obviously, with Mike Gillis. It did come out that Keith Pelly was talking to Mike Gillis before Brad Treliving was fired, which just I put out a little YouTube short being like, oh, so you're telling me that Keith Pelly has commitment issues, because it's like that whole story of like, you always have somebody else lined up before you end the relationship.
Yeah.
And it's like it's par for the course.
But now there's like conflicting reports about Gillis, or maybe the Maple Leafs don't want to go with that president route. And to me, you already know what that experiment's going to be like. So if you're thinking about going with the president, to just hire Mike Gillis. If you're thinking of otherwise, you're going to be in the same spot that you were last year. So it's
I think their problem is right now they don't know what they want to do.
Yeah, and that to me is
exactly
even more of a bigger problem, that you don't know what you want to do.
This is Keith Pelly right now in the pot. He's just stirring a little bit too much. So, and close it out. Ridley Griggs sucker punch, uppercut on a unsuspecting Scott Walker. Man. I just. And there's been crickets from the Department of Player Safety. There's been nothing.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't matter.
An indication that they're going to look at it.
I think it doesn't matter because they're eliminated, but that should not be a factor. Yeah,
you should still see a 2-game sussy at the beginning of the year.
Oh
right?
yeah,
like,
absolutely.
Otherwise, you're just promoting, hey, come up and sucker punch a guy who's in a headlock. Like, are we watching WWE right now on the ice? Like, it just does to me. I was
just about to say, this is the kind of problem with a guy like Ridley Gregg. When you do stuff like that, you are going to have a massive target on your back. And you better be ready for that come next year, because I don't think Carolina's going to forget that at all.
Yeah, no, they definitely won't forget it. And truly, like, everyone cried and moaned when he got hit into the boards. But, like, then nobody, like, crickets from Ottawa Senators fans.
Yeah.
After this. I don't know if you saw Biz on TNT, but like he had it right. Like there's certain lines in hockey that you don't cross, and being an absolute classless piece of shit is one of those. And that was classless. Like that was just
gutless.
It was so gutless.
It was a beer league scumbag move. That's what it is.
Yeah. Like if Riley was on the ice, I would have given him the okay to fucking cross check him in the head again.
I don't think anybody would argue that.
No. Anyways, I'm not going to promote violence because I don't want to be kicked off TikTok again here. But anyways, that was the last point I wanted to bring up. For those of you that did join us today on the show, we appreciate it. Again, we were talking not only hockey history, we were talking to some Canadian history in terms of the Bill Barilko story. Documentary is, as Steve mentioned, hopefully going to premiere in June up in Timmins. Anybody want to make the trip? Should we make the trip up to Timmins for the premiere? How sick would that be?
Kind of sounds like a 6 in the 6 road trip right there. Yes.
Anybody got like a small plane that we can like, kind of take and just go for a weekend? Like, I don't know. It sounds like something. But anyways, regardless, hopefully the premiere comes out on time. They're going to be heading to the wreckage as we talked about on the show today. So for those who joined, we appreciate it. I know Steve would appreciate it as well. And we will definitely get Steve back on once the doc is finished, complete, premiering, and we can get it kind of, a little bit more information, because he was a little tight-lipped on some of the stuff, because obviously you got to watch the doc.
Yeah.
Exactly. So anyways, until next time, Peter, you got anything before we close it out?
Just gearing up some draft content right now. Top OHLers working on that right now. Some U18 stuff with the tournament happening right now, and next big thing to circle on for Leaf fans is just basically the draft lottery. I've been running the Tankathon simulator multiple times just to see how well it will go in the Leafs' favor. Wrote about how the odds are still not as bad as many had hoped, so there's that. But I'm just hoping that things actually look up for once this season.
Gary says that seems like a cursed flight.
Yeah.
Yes, Gary, there will be an emergency pod this week if there's a GM or president of hockey ops hired. So yes, absolutely, and we appreciate the interest as well. Of course, like that's something that we want to hammer out as soon as we get the news. So, so long as life doesn't get in the way, which sometimes it does. 2 kids, full-time jobs, it does get in the way. But we will do our best to get on here as soon as possible and discuss it. And we hope that you join us and have a lot to say about it as well. So, look for all the draft content. Peter does a phenomenal job over at the Hockey Writers, making sure that our draft guide is top notch. We have all sorts of prospect profiles that are coming out. Guys that you aren't even thinking of past that first round. We've got prospect profiles. We've got guys delivering on all basis when it comes to the draft. And it's going to be an exciting time of year. May 5th is the draft lottery. The Leafs, we hope, will be a top 5 pick. Otherwise, the pick is going to Boston. But you want to know the prospects that the Toronto Maple Leafs might get their hands on at some point during the year. So be sure to check out the draft content over at the Hockey Writers. And as always, thank you to Gary. Thank you to Steve. Thank you to all those that tuned in today to watch episode 234 of the Sticks in the Six podcast. We'll have lots more. Again, possibly another episode this week if there's a hire within the Leafs organization. Otherwise, make sure you check us out over on the Hockey Podcast Network, as well as Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all your streaming services. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube. Hit the follow on TikTok if you're watching right now on TikTok. And as always, check out our description below for promo codes for BioSteel as well as SeatGeek. We're going to close it out with our good friend Alex Hobson and his hit 25.